Welcome to Finding Ourself, a podcast about the power of presence, connection, and the transformation that is only possible through touch. So if you're curious about human connection, somatic healing, or what it really means to belong, you're in the right place. Let's find ourselves together. Hello. Hi. Welcome to another episode of Finding Ourself. I am really excited for today. It's going to be really fun and very high energy, I imagine. My name is Keeley. I am one of your hosts. I am the CEO and co-owner of Cuddlist, which is what brings you this podcast. It's Finding Ourselves by Cuddlist. The co-host with me today and every time is Michelle Renee.
I'm kind of your life co-host in a weird way, actually. Yeah, I'm Michelle Renee. I am also a co-owner with Keeley and the director of training, and we've both been practitioners since like the inception of Cuddlist, and it's really cool to be doing this podcast. A couple episodes have dropped since we started recording this, and it's so fun. I listened to one that came out this morning and I'm loving this. So I'm excited for this conversation to be added to our collection today.
And our incredible guest, who I can't wait to talk more to, is the incredible Kelly Campbell. Kelly, will you give everyone a little intro into who you are and all the amazing things that you do?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited. I've been excited for this conversation for a while. So I am Kelly Campbell. I use they them pronouns. I wrote a book last year called Heal to Lead, and my work in the world is really about loving and holding people through life transitions, whatever that looks like, personal, work, spiritual, whatever is the need. And so that looks a little different depending upon the client. That could be trauma-informed leadership coaching. That could be cuddle therapy. That could be shibari. That could be Reiki. It's like a kind of I think about it like a tool belt, and I just kind of, whatever is needed, I kind of pull out of the tool belt. And that flexibility feels really good to me. That's also one of the reasons why a lot of people have asked, why didn't you ever become a therapist? And I'm like, it just felt a little restrictive, and I'm not a person that you can put in a box.
Mm-hmm. Your tool belt is a Batman tool belt. It has way too many things to be contained. It's like,
yeah,
author, cuddlist, coach, all these things.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because I used to own a digital marketing agency for 14 years. And so being in a very traditional, actually very male dominant industry, and having to work very much within rigidity and existing frameworks, I always questioned why that felt so uncomfortable for me. And it was because I really wanted more flexibility to be more than just, hey, I'm the owner of this agency, or I own a digital marketing agency. And so now that I've sort of dropped that need to have a positioning statement, I'm like, yeah, I do all of these things. I'm a multidimensional being. And not needing to apply so much of like the value of who I am with like what I produce or what I provide to people, but just kind of offering my heart, and wherever that takes us, and however that is supportive to someone, that feels like my highest calling.
This was not on like the pre-thought out questions today, but it came to mind immediately. So it might be a tangent. We might direct us back. But how weird is it for someone who's worked in marketing for so long, where there's such an emphasis on like, okay, in order to be an effective marketer, you need to have a punchy line. You have to have small definitions of what you do. You have to make sure you're communicating to everyone like this little tiny thing that they'll immediately pick up on. And you're like, yeah, I do so many things. I cannot give you a small sentence or even a 3-word slogan that describes it. How, like, where's the, like, I don't know, in my mind, that's a gear grind. Is that true for you?
I think dropping a lot of the pretense around that and really getting at the heart of like, what do I do and why do I do it? Which is, when I say like, I love and hold people through life transitions. That's it. If they have questions, because they always will have questions from that, then we can go into, whatever is most resonant for where they're at or what they're going through. And then I sort of tailor the conversation to that.
I love that. ends up being simpler than
and more connective.
and more connective. Yeah, really cool. Really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of things that I want to talk about today. And one of the first things is I'd love to know a little bit. So you shared kind of about your origin. You owned a marketing firm, right? And then there was something that happened or a transition that happened, and now you're in sort of a different sphere. You're in a little bit more of the interpersonal, some people call it healing, some people call
Mhm.
it therapeutic realm. What was that kind of origin about?
Um, well, it was sort of selling the agency when I was 36 and realizing like this is just not for me anymore. Um, and I guess I would say kind of going through a little bit of like, I don't know if you would call it like a spiritual awakening or an ego death or something in that realm. I started consulting because I guess when you sell a company, that's just what everybody does. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. But so consulting was fine and the money was great, but it was not feeding my soul any more than owning the agency was. And then I had a client who basically said, I can't afford you as a consultant. Do you do coaching? And I was like, I don't know, sounds like coaching is cheaper than consulting. Sure, I do that. And so I was basically just consulting with him, but remotely and for a fraction of the cost. And then through a conversation, he essentially said something to the effect of, I noticed that I had some negative interaction with an employee of mine. And then I came home and I was really short with my daughters and I got in a fight with my wife. Is that something that we can talk about? And I literally, my whole body was like, oh my God, that's actually all I want to talk about.
Mm.
And literally, it was that conversation that led me to go, oh, I need training as a coach. I don't know what kind of coach yet, but probably not life coach. And that sort of directed me in the realm of like trauma informed leadership coaching.
Mm.
And it's just been like more and more refined around, yeah, working with leaders, self-described leaders who understand that something about their past is holding them back, and they really want to get underneath that. And I'm like an emotional detective, double
Mm.
Scorpio, so I want to like plunge the depths with people, and if they're not afraid to have those more intense, open, super vulnerable, high trust conversations, then we're a good fit. So in the beginning, I was a little hesitant to put that I was a trauma informed leadership coach, even on LinkedIn, because I'm like, well, that's basically a sign that says, don't work with me. It's going to be
Oh,
hard. It's going to be hard work. Right. So it took me about 6 months before I even put that on my headline. And now it's just like a whole different world. I'm like, how much weirder can I be? How much more me can I be? Like, let's talk about cuddle therapy and shibari and astrology and whatever else, because yeah, it fitting into these boxes just does not work for me, and I don't know that it works for anyone.
I think that's what we do, right? We help unpack their boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we pull the
So
bow and just see the package go poof.
yeah, yeah. So that level of trust and vulnerability sort of led to this, oh well, if that's possible, like what else is possible in terms of helping people? I got certified as a Reiki practitioner, and I was like, this is great, this is good in the toolbox, this isn't like the mainstay, but this is good. Okay. And then I had a conversation with John, and we were cuddling just, for fun. And he was like, you would be really, really good at this. And I was like, that's funny. I will admit I had so much judgment,
oh, sure.
so much judgment. I was like, good at cuddling. Like, you do this for a living. I want people to take me seriously. This is not, I'm just being totally transparent with you guys.
Oh, I love it. And for
It
anyone who
was
doesn't know,
not.
John is another co-owner, just in case people need that point of reference. So John is another co-owner and has been with the company for a very long time. And so you know him personally, and we're like, all right, this is weird. Tell me more.
Yeah, and it wasn't, the cuddling itself wasn't weird, but I was like doing this as like for a living, as a vocation. Like, I don't know. I just think that people are going to have inaccurate perceptions of me. Maybe they saw me one way, and now if I did this other thing, they would see me a different way. And my ego wasn't ready for that at the time.
Mm.
Um, So
What's
yeah, I
happening
kept
is
that really, really hidden. And basically he just planted a seed. He's very good at that. Planted a seed, and then yeah, the seed just started sprouting. And I was like, oh God, I think I really am gonna do this. So I went through the training, and then a couple years later I got certified. And um yeah, it's just been probably the most moving, the most rewarding, and probably the I would say the work in the world that I have more love for than anything I've ever done.
I love hearing that. I, and
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm gonna I don't know if this is a humble brag or something, but I love that because I hear it so often. It like lights me up of the like from the moment one of intense judgment to this is the thing that I like the most. That arc is so common. At this point, I'm nomming on it. It's I'm gonna eat that up for breakfast every day. It's so good. And so when people
Yeah.
are like, I judge the hell out of this, I'm like, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah.
you to
And
the
I
other side.
think it's also one of those things where, Michelle, you and I have talked about this, where people don't tend to talk about the fact that they go to see a cuddle therapist. Someone asked me earlier today, I had a call, and she said, how can I support your work? And I was like, talk about it. Just talk about it. Talk about that I do this. Talk about that you think it's cool, or that you think it's weird, or that you would never go, or just talk about it,
Mhm.
right? Because the more that we talk about these things that have been sort of pushed into the shadows, like, and also something as radical as human connection, right? Like holding each other.
Right.
Yeah, what are we talking about? How did we get this far off track? That's a whole nother podcast.
I wore the wrong t-shirt today. I wore the wrong t-shirt. Kelly, you've seen the t-shirt. I wore it to our, we'll get to the retreat, but Cuddlist, edgier than psychedelics, because the therapy world, you're going to experience this. Kelly is going to join us at Innovations in Psychotherapy in October, and you'll get to witness it yourself. But it's really fascinating to watch both a moth to a flame in a way, much like therapists and psychedelics are, and this like big eyes, what is going on here? But also the idea that this work does seem edgier in those spaces. Like we're not on the main stage
Not yet.
yet. We're going to work on that.
We have been a few times. We were at the APA conference, not on the very main stage, but we've been in the spaces. We're getting there, but the tables and the conversations and people flocking to psychedelics as a therapeutic intervention, even though the substance itself is still illegal almost ubiquitously, right? Like that is a thing that people are totally willing to broach. People are totally willing to navigate what's on the other side of an illegal substance, because they also get that the reason why it's illegal, there's a whole lot of conversation there, right? And but the touch, just hugs, that is feels so dangerous to people, and it's
Yeah.
because there's such a breadth of it's an iceberg, right? The very tip of the iceberg that you see that we often talk about is like it's a hug or it's a cuddle, but the intense amount the intense amount of skill needed to do this work well, safely, what it takes as a practitioner to know how to do that for other people in a way that's going to meet them where they're at, that's going to protect us, the kind of communication tools and skills that we need, the kind of boundaries tools and skills that we need. The all of that is just this giant iceberg that people don't have any concept of, totally understand why, but don't have any concept of.
Yeah. I think it comes down to ethics for them. Like they're thinking about the ethics of, I'm gonna, like, you touch your clients, you tell them you love them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where is that? I think it's also like there's this rigidity with their training. Again, not a judgment, it's just factual, right? There's this rigidity with their training that you can't step out of these lines, these boxes.
I'm gonna get on a step back real quick, because what I think that is so much a product of, right? And I'm gonna say a phrase that's for some people is cringy, but like the Me Too movement was about understanding the lack of consent education that exists, period, point blank, and the lack of understanding culturally of any kind of consent practice. And we were in that soup, for years and years and years and years. And we're only now just coming out of that cultural norm. And therapy grew up and was created within that old cultural norm and that old soup, as I called it. And so instead of teaching therapists comprehensive consent ideas, they just said, don't ever do it, because we don't want to teach you it, or we don't know how to teach it, or we don't think that you all will learn it, whatever the reason. They just completely circumvented it and said, okay, none of this is ever okay, as opposed to, oh, actually, yeah, no, it's just another skill set. It is purely just another skill set, and you can learn it just like anything else, just like you're learning neuroscience, just like you're learning how trauma impacts the body, just like you're learning CBT or DBT or any of these other, it's simply a skill, and you learn it, and then you're absolutely going to ethically but they just didn't do it. They just didn't know how.
This last week I was at an event in LA. Like, I thought, oh, this will be a great networking event. It was about trauma. It was a CE event, so I knew there'd be therapists there. And I left and I questioned, and I immediately went to one of my friends who just finished their MFT program to say, did you guys learn about trauma? And they're like, barely. Yeah. And I was like, oh crap. Now I'm starting to like have this instant replay of like, I have to figure out, I thought I was safe talking to therapists about my work in this trauma-informed language and assuming they have this basic understanding, and they don't. So now I'm like, oh gosh, I have to go back to like even probably my flyer that I have set up for therapists and be like, oh, I have to even take this back another step because I made an assumption, because I think, what therapist office doesn't have some form of trauma showing up in it? Like, right. How? And I sat there going, wow, okay, we know a lot. At least the people that have been, like, I know I'm a special interest junkie. My special interest happens to be like complex PTSD and things like that. So like that, not every therapist knows any of the basics around trauma. And I'm just like kind of caught off guard by that. And so when you add that with consent and all these different things, of course our work looks incredibly scary.
Right. I kind of liken this to, like a medical doctor who goes through 7 years of training to become a medical doctor. They get 7 hours of nutrition training. We're talking about what you put into the body, which impacts so much. 7 hours out of 7 years of training. You assume that doctors would know about nutrition and how it impacts the body and all of this, but they don't. So I kind of see a parallel there.
Oh, I think there's so many. I was just to add to this, like how many hours of, did I hear, don't quote me on this, but this MFT program had 1 hour about couples counseling. It's a marriage and family therapy practice. And I get, it's like our work. We have the basic training, and then a lot of what you learn is once you get out into the field and you do your continuing education, whether it's officially because your license requires it, or if you're in our world, it's a personal, where do you want your work to go? Yeah. What do you feel like you need to know in order to show up for the people that are showing up in your space? And yeah, I want them all to be leveled up.
So how does that impact your work, Kelly? Like, you are more in leadership spaces than really interacting in psychotherapy spaces, if I'm understanding that right.
Well, my coaching clients are all leaders.
Yeah.
So because it's trauma-informed leadership coaching, which is again about, so my whole work up until this point has been working with leaders to help them understand and correlate the impacts of their childhood trauma on their leadership style, efficacy, etc. Sure. And then, because I'm not a therapist, we don't dwell in the past. We say, okay, so we understand that those things happen. How do we integrate those things, and how do we move forward so that we're not repeating patterns and, essentially projecting that unprocessed trauma and pain on our employees or on our, other people in our lives.
Does attachment stuff come up a lot?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. Attachment, money wounding, which, is really, money is like a stand-in for relationship to power, pleasure, giving, receiving. There's so much that dovetails with all of this that we do, which is why I come back to like the toolbox, right? I
want
feel
to
like I
rewind because I love what you just said. I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but I feel like it needs to be highlighted. Money is a stand-in for your relationship to plot power and pleasure and,
giving and
and giving and receiving.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. That's so big. Okay. I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight that. That was huge.
Yeah, I'm leading a retreat on that in particular, in Seattle, October 2nd to 5th, because there's so much there. That's its own retreat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it reminds me of a time I tried to be with, there was a group of like 15 therapists and me. um, and we wanted to create an organization to help folks. And they were all very adamant that it had to be a nonprofit. And I recognized that simply the structures, for me personally, the structure of a nonprofit was very rigid and very specific, especially in the states that we were looking at starting it, that it wasn't based on our values, mission statement, and our organization, it didn't seem to be a really great match, especially because we were trying to more recreate non-hierarchical structures.
Mhm.
And by definition in law, you have to have a hierarchical structure to file with the state to be a nonprofit. Makes sense, right? But there was such a huge pushback because the perception was I was saying that we needed to be predatory.
Oh, wow.
That was the perception because we need to take people's money. Well, for nonprofits also take money because they have to function. It
Mhm.
doesn't, nonprofit isn't synonymous with the word like ethical. It's simply a structure.
Right.
And that was a very interesting, so it was like a lot of people's relationship to money and relationship to the word profit versus the relationship to the word nonprofit. And I was like, oh, we're just talking about structural, like
Right.
with a state, like you got to file paperwork and whatnot. We can run a thing however we want. We can be as ethical in our practices as we want. We can charge what like is ethical. But yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. Not surprising though.
For sure, we should have hired you. We should have brought you in because it did get off the ground. There's too many conflicts.
Yeah.
But you all have done something, both the two of you, Kelly and Michelle, y'all have done something kind of cool recently that seems like a good, like pointing to where you have gone and where you're going into. You said you're about to do a retreat about money, but you all just finished a retreat that talks about a lot of what we're doing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Michelle, do you want to frame it?
I will frame it in the
Okay.
sense that I think I want to shower love on you, Kelly.
Wow.
And I don't know if you would do this for yourself as
Oh,
well as I will do
well,
it for
I already
you.
feel like, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah. So,
Listen.
because of our dear mutual John,
Mhm.
I got invited to come join what was the first immersive cuddle retreat, which I was intrigued. I was a little like, I bet this won't work very well.
Mhm.
I had a lot of like curiosity, doubt, excitement. I knew that I was excited to be part of something that was a first, and also a little bit of pre-grief that I was sure that it wouldn't happen twice.
Mm.
Like it was going to be really well intentioned, but not. The word that keeps coming to mind is effective enough
Mhm.
in a weekend, and with the limitations of of the container, the time, the people, all these things, right?
Mhm.
You're working with people over months and years.
Oh yeah, I'm used to working one-on-one. I'm used to I have one client that does an hour session at a time, and I'm like, what are you talking about? We do 2-3 hour sessions. We meet, we build up this relationship over a very long period of time. We're gonna come in over over 4 days, but it's like 2 full days in 2/3 of a days or whatever, right? And I'm like, how is this going to be like really effective? And the magic that Kelly was able to put together, in setting up the structure and having the vision, that took a lot of guts. Like you saw something that I didn't see and you did it. You ran into the fire. I freaking love that. I didn't know what it was going to be like to be a practitioner where I'm living with my quote unquote kind of clients for a weekend. and we were going to do 1-hour sessions of cuddling. How in the heck was that going to benefit anybody? Right? But Kelly Campbell, you knocked it out of the park. I'm not even speaking as the people that were participating in this retreat. I'm only speaking from my experience. What a place of growth. What a place of love.
Mm.
And I couldn't have stood next to better people. And I didn't know you. Like, we met in a cohort when you came in to update your training.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end I said something to you like, whatever you're doing, sign me up for it. I will follow you anywhere. Because you have a huge heart, and you have a huge heart, and you're super reliable. And for somebody who is also like very reliable, because I need that from other people.
It's your love language too.
Yes, you are such a beautiful, beautiful person who could make all this happen. And it was a gift to me, but I can't even speak for what the participants have felt from this. So I'll let you handle the feedback. But like, as a partner with you in this, thank you for inviting me. And thank you for like just making such an amazing experience happen. And I'm so excited to do it again with you.
Yeah. Thank
for
you.
someone who was hired to be working it to have that kind of experience, I'm floored already. I've heard Michelle rave about it a lot of times, but I'm also, tell us more about what it was like for other people, and a little bit about the event, because we heard your experience, but tell me about the event.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that, and also I'm still digesting. Yeah, it was, I hear all of the like, how was this gonna work, right? I actually don't think like that is the answer. I don't so it doesn't mean that I don't pre-plan and over-plan and over-function, because I do that. But I don't look at how this particular piece isn't going to work or whatever. I literally just follow my intuition and I follow the breadcrumbs of the things that I know have worked already, because I've either been on the receiving end of them, or I know. There's like, it's like a claircognizance. Like, I just know. So John and I and a couple of other people who were on the retreat have been at another retreat place that we go to. And the container there, the way that that's sort of been evolving over the last literally 50 years, the way that that container is built because it's a Thursday night to Sunday morning event or retreat. So the way that that container is built, from the opening to the closing of it, and then the pre-retreat call, the aftercare, all of that, it's the thing that makes the magic possible. So it's not anything I'm doing. I'm just booking an Airbnb and bringing in the right people, to help coordinate all of that. But the magic that gets created in community, I guess the thought process behind that vision was, I see how impactful cuddle therapy is, regardless of how long a session is, right? I see people getting what they need and want. I see people starting to understand how they can ask for what they need and want, identify it, ask for it, and then receive it, and how transformative that is. And of course, people come to cuddle therapy for all different reasons, right? But generally speaking, I thought, well, if we paired this particular container that I have firsthand experience with on the receiving end with cuddle therapy, which I have firsthand experience on the giving end, that felt like there was some kind of alchemy there that I really, really wanted to test out. And I didn't see it as, how could it work in 1-hour sessions? It was like, no, I believe in the container. I believe in, like, when people are that vulnerable, when we're doing exercises with them, when they're needing to like work with one another, there's just a witnessing that happens, and a trust that gets developed. And yeah, it's hard. There isn't like English words to talk about this in a way because some of it is magical, some of it is mystical. Um, and some of the feedback has been like that was life changing.
Mm.
There were people who walked away feeling like their, in their words, like the richness of their lives was elevated. I'm sort of paraphrasing that. um, or people who saw a shift in their own perceptions of themselves. Um, we did have uh, swimsuit optional spaces during free time in there was like a natural water area, like a river, and there was a hot tub. And we talked a lot about that in the, prior to the event and then during the retreat, if there was anyone who was uncomfortable with that, if they themselves didn't want to engage in that, it wasn't a requirement, but it was an option. And there were two people on retreat who had never, ever been that vulnerable to be in swimsuit optional spaces. They had only been nude with with their partners, right? So never in community. And I think that the amount of vulnerability that takes to do that, it was a testament to the container that was built, because you could not have done that in a different container where you determined that, it was safe or not. I don't want to get off track because that definitely was not, that was like a little addition, like an optional addition to the retreat, but it was these one-on-one sessions and rotating practitioners, right? So we had 6 participants on that retreat and 3 cuddlists. So each cuddlist or each participant had 4 sessions in total, 1-hour sessions throughout the weekend. And the way that the signups worked, a participant would be able to cuddle with each one of us once and then one of us twice. I think that's how it worked out. On the next retreat, we'll have 4 cuddlists and 8 participants because I think that there was space for a little bit more. But that's all logistical. I mean, it was a lot of people sharing their experiences, talking about what happened in their cuddle sessions if they wanted to. Again, not a requirement. Or just talking about how they were feeling or what they were noticing was different about them from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. Yeah, it was beyond what I could have ever imagined. And it gave me, I kind of joked during the retreat, but it sort of gave me like irrational confidence to be like, oh, no, I'm really onto something here. And I want to do this multiple times a year.
I think what's so magical about the way we get to show up with clients is the fact that we bring ourselves into our space with our clients. And so while yes, we had 4-hour-long sessions a day that we went through. So each person had 2-hour-long sessions a day. They weren't just getting that we show up together for this little hour piece. They were getting, we show up together all of our waking hours. So in a way, it wasn't an hour. It was an hour of individual attention,
right,
but it was hours of being in community, which is what they are in with us when we're in our one-on-one sessions. It's just they're getting us plus all the other people. And we are in it with them in those exercises that are happening outside of our one-on-one time. We're divulging, as much as we want to, right? Like part of that ooey gooiness of just getting time to learn about each other. And it's not just learning about them, right? We are also bringing ourselves to that space, and they're learning about us and our stories. And so it is that yumminess of the mutual exchange of information, connection, energy,
humanity. Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think that's also part of the alchemy. It's not an like, here's the facilitation and support team and here's the retreatants. We're all on retreat together. the chef and the sous chef and the sound bath healer that was there, they were all in the conversations and sharing, even though they didn't have cuddle sessions. They were there witnessing other people and then sharing whatever was true for their own experiences. And that's how it is at this retreat center that I was referencing before. That is part of the magic, right? That I don't feel like I'm here in some kind of group therapy session, right? Where there's a facilitator who's not sharing anything about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I would be opposed to that, but there's a separation that happens with a setting like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes back to your question before, your statement before about like that boundary that therapists sometimes have. It's like we are very, very well boundaried as cuddle practitioners. And because of that, on this retreat, we were able to share very openly, right? And cry in front of our participants. And, I had some lower back issues. And while they were doing an exercise, John was fixing my lower back, right? It's like, we're all human. I'm having a thing. Michelle was crying. It's like seeing each other in our humanity was like the most connective part of that. That's what creates a container where people feel that comfortable.
I love that. From the outside, it also makes sense just hearing about it. Like, one of the reasons why hour-long sessions aren't always as effective in just day-to-day life is because you are having to do a pretty big gear shift from the world, daily life, work, relationship, whatever, into the space. You have to gear shift down a whole lot, get into a space where you're slow enough so you can actually feel your body and connected enough. And if you're never fully going out of that like physical state and emotional state to go back to traffic or demand from your boss because a report is late or what, if you never have to go back into that space, I can imagine that it is much easier to get into the healing and the thing that is so potent about
Right.
cuddle therapy sessions. And the thing that makes this work so inherently, again, potent is the relationality of it. So talking about it being still in community and everyone being a part of activities together and having their own, like, not being so separate, that also like tracks so much with it and being able to share. We talked about it earlier about what's the biggest thing that you can do to help is like share it. You're also not in any position, like you mentioned that the participants could, if they wanted to, share a little bit of a reflection about what their experience was in their cuddle session, so it's not taboo. Everyone around you is normalizing it. Yeah, that's a normal thing. We're all going to go do that thing at some point in the day. And so it's not the like, oh, well, do I feel comfortable enough to even admit that I'm doing this thing? And like, no, I can actually process it. I don't have to like keep it under wraps or keep it quiet. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's what it is. It's about just welcoming the entirety of a human
Mm-hmm.
into a space. And that's also why we call it, an immersive, because, Michelle, as you said, it wasn't just 1 hour cuddle sessions. It was essentially everybody got a 72-hour long cuddle session.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. We wouldn't use that language because that would scare people off. But ultimately, that's kind of what it was. It was being held in community, being loved for exactly who you are. And yeah, just being held in whatever you're working through.
Yeah. I want to go back to something really quick because you mentioned it and then we kind of moved. We didn't want to tangent off of it, but the clothing optional or the bathing suit optional swimming spaces. I actually think that that's a really relevant thing, and I also want to address it because there's a part of me that fears anytime we do this because we have to proselytize that this work is platonic so much, and then we have to reiterate it so much, and then we get constant pushback about it, and they're like, that's not true. And my worry is that someone's going to listen to that and be like, aha, I heard, like, see, it wasn't fully platonic, but I want to relate it to an experience that I've had of going to a really great Korean spa here in Chicago. Of it, that is an entirely platonic place. You're going into a Korean spa, and that's just normal in that culture. It's just a different culture, right?
Right.
And the very first time I ever went there was one of the most profound shifts in my perception of what normal bodies were, period, point blank. It was my first ever exposure to like an elderly body in a normal experience that wasn't from media. And in media, elderly bodies are either tragic or joke. And this was just neutral. And then just the variations. You don't really see, even in media, there's a very limited amount of just nude bodies. They're almost always in a sexual context. And if they're not in a, and it's porn, things like that. That's where there's so much experience about it. And when you take away that element, when you actually take out the sexual element of it and remove it, it is mind blowing because it is so rare that it gets that opportunity. So I actually really love it that you mentioned that, because for people who are like having a gotcha moment, actually it's the most profound thing ever to be able to be that and non-sexual at the same time, because it normalizes, it comforts, it makes it safe, it makes it so much more powerful, especially when it's also not mandatory. It is an option. Like, you get to do you, and you get to be comfortable in how you want to be. I do love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, we also have research that says one of the fastest ways to conquer body image issues is to get naked in public spaces with other nude bodies. Like, it is so normalizing so quickly, like you said, Keeley, with the Korean spa or wherever that space is, that while I didn't participate, I decided my boundary. And trust me, if anybody knows me, I am in nude spaces all the time. And I chose in this space to be more conservative for myself, because I did not feel, I wasn't sure how I felt about my professionalism in that space. And that's the beauty of it, is there was no pressure to do that, but it was an opportunity, and it was an option. And we love choice in this work, right? Choices are so imperative.
Yeah. It was, it's interesting because I think if I had designed this retreat or had this vision for this retreat several years ago, that probably would not have been a thing.
Sure.
Last December, I had top surgery, and post recovery, my partner and I travel a lot abroad. And so when we go to other places, we want to try to find nude beaches sometimes, because that feels really liberating. And I was really nervous post surgery. Like, how are other people going to perceive me? Right. Like, and I think the liberation and the just like more me that I have felt in like taking my shirt off, in kind of certain settings, beach settings, things like that. I mowed the lawn at my house like a few months ago with my shirt off. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Right. And so the more free that I feel, I'm like, oh God, like the embodiment of that. I was like, I want everyone to feel this free. And then it's an option, right? But I can still have a desire for people to feel free. And so that adding that into that space as an option felt really important. And then to see some of the people who took advantage of that and the transformation and the like liberation that they have felt, I'm like, oh, okay. On all cuddle retreats going forward, this will be a thing. The next one in February has an Olympic-sized, heated, fully enclosed swimming pool.
Amazing.
I'm like, yes. So yeah, I'm really glad that you kind of pulled that back, Keeley, because it is important to talk about. You can feel liberated and, be in those swimsuit optional, clothing optional spaces, and it still be entirely 100% platonic. And that's kind of the whole point, is that you don't have to have sexual or romantic anything in order to feel free.
Or to cuddle.
Right.
Like, we're always fighting that when people hear the word cuddle, and we talk about that. We've talked about it here. We've talked to Keeley and I have a whole episode about the word cuddle coming out. We have to start pulling these things apart as society. And we just happen to be the ones that normalize the fact that we can have closeness, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy that's not sexual intimacy.
Right.
And we can have in this retreat, we can have a space where we can have both, right? We can have the traditional cuddlist session, right? We had every session over and over again, opening agreement. I got faster at it. I will tell you that. Got pretty efficient at it. And we kept to the code of conduct in our one-on-ones. And we were still able to have, it didn't need to be an entire weekend of the code of conduct to still honor what is the work that we all love so much.
For those not in the know, code of conduct does include clothing requirements. So that means that the sessions had clothes and had all, you can go check out the code of conduct on the Cuddlist website. So you know that every single Cuddlist session will have those things consistently. It's our commitment to like the clarity of communicating of what it is. And when that session closes, then you're in a different space, and that makes sense. It makes sense to set up the like kind of exterior container for that. So yeah, very cool. There's so much more to discuss here and so much more to chew on. But I think that is a really good spot for today. And we will absolutely have to continue after your next a couple retreats that you're mentioning coming up, whether it's another cuddle retreat or another retreat for people's relationship to money and leadership and success. And so such good stuff. I can't wait to follow more what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, where do people find you if they want to get a little bit more information, if they want to participate in some of the events that you put on?
Just my website, so klcampbell.com. Everything's there.
Amazing. Awesome. And if you want to know more about Cuddlist in general, you can go to cuddlist.com. It'll be in the show notes. Everyone look below and you can read all about it. And I'm so grateful that you came on here, and it's such a rich discussion. Thank you so, so much. And as always, if anyone's watching, thank you so much for watching, and big hugs if you want them.